Yeah, hello and welcome to this presentation. Glad you're here. Really looking forward to it. My name is Lukas Kunzmann. I'm a filmmaker and visual effects artist from Germany. And I guess like many of you, my love for filmmaking began early. I was just a kid when I picked up my first camera and wanted to become a filmmaker. And one day I watched my first Harry Potter movie and I asked myself, how the heck do they do those magical effects? And after some research, I stumbled across a program called After Effects and a website called Video Copilot. And that's where my journey as visual effects artist basically began. So some time has passed since then, and I've been incredibly lucky to have worked on some amazing projects, from commercials to feature films from Blumhouse, Netflix, and Amazon Prime, and a few others. So first, let's have a look at some of my visual effects work, and then we continue. Thank you so much. Yeah, so all those projects were a lot of fun, and I really loved working on them. But as I said, coming from a kind of filmmaker background, deep down, I still wanted to make my own films. I directed some music videos and commercials, but I really missed like making those real passion projects like back in the days. I'm a big science fiction horror fan, and I had this idea for a science fiction horror short film for a long time. And one day I sat down with a good friend of mine, Jürgen Dassing, who is also a producer, and told him about this project. And then after a long conversation, we basically said, why not? Maybe we fail, maybe we don't, let's just try. And this brings us to The Color. The Color is a 30-minute long sci-fi horror short film. Yes, 30 minutes, so not really that short anymore. And first, let me give you some overview of this project. We got a small state cultural funding, but most of the budget was financed by us privately. Our goal was to create a proof of concept that we can eventually pitch to studios for a feature film. Basically, we want something that we could take there and say, hey, look, we did this with basically no money. Imagine what we could achieve with a proper budget. And also, we just wanted to make a cool short film. So this was the initial idea behind The Color. And from the beginning, it was quite clear that making this film would be pretty challenging. Did we have a low budget? Yes. Did we have a tight schedule because of this? Yes. Would we shoot it during COVID? Yes. Would we have our 300 visual effect shots and basically no money? Yes. And did we want to shoot it in 2 times anamorphic, which means post-production would be even more painful? Yes. So it was a little challenging, and in this presentation, I tried to give you an overview how we try to handle those challenges. And honestly, the best part of this whole project was seeing so many talented people come on board and watching the whole thing grow bigger than we could ever imagine. And we basically sent emails to people who we thought would never even reply, and suddenly they were calling back and were excited to join us. And we could have never done this without all the passion and heart everyone put into it, making it like 200 times better than we could ever imagine. So at this point, a huge thank you to everyone who joined us on this crazy journey. And before we continue, let me show you a first teaser, and you're actually one of the first people who see this.
This is Station 314, report 04. We were able to triangulate the source, the center of the crater. The crew is doing well. Enter report 04.
What do you remember?
Nothing.
What happened here?
I can see something.
What?
This is Station 314. Do you read me? We have a problem. Over.
It's everywhere.
Thank you so much. So let's have a look at the pre-production phase first. So knowing we had almost no money, but many visual effect shots, we followed one rule from the beginning: don't fix it in post, especially if you don't have money. So we wanted to find the most efficient solution for the visual effects from the start. And of course, you always end up with things that don't work like you imagined, and you always have to do some problem solving in post. But we tried our best from the beginning. The producer, me, and a few incredibly dedicated interns spent 8 whole months building the sets. We had real modified locations, but also sets that we built from the ground up. The short film takes place in an underground research station, and here you can see the layout of it. And every room you can see here is a different location. So in real life, they were not connected at all. So from the beginning, we did a lot of planning to connect them in post. You even can see the red doors, so we knew in which direction the doors will open for the different locations. And then we took countless 3D scans and photos to make this as efficient as possible, as we couldn't afford to digitally rebuilding the rooms from scratch. And we used those 3D scans and 2.5D image projection to realize those set extensions. And for example, Gaussian splatting be available today would have helped us a lot back then and would be even a better solution. Here's another example of how we tried to work smart instead of hard. We couldn't afford an actual flamethrower, surprise, and creating one entirely in post would mean dealing with complicated lighting interaction with the environment we would have to recreate. So instead we built a practical flamethrower with a bright remotely controlled LED bulb on the end. And this gave us realistic and controllable lighting right on set. And it turned out all we had to do was just blur out that bulb in post, so it basically looked like a glow, and then comp in some flames on top. That was easy, it was effective, and it was cheap. And as we knew we will have many visual effect shots and basically we'll work on them in our free time, we knew we couldn't put in the highest quality in every shot if we wanted to finish in a reasonable amount of time and still have a life. So another important principle we used is what we called "we love shadows." As you know, shadows are very good at hiding imperfections, and less visible detail means fewer hours to make it look good. So embracing shadows allowed us to be much faster without decreasing the perceived quality too much. And thinking about all this in pre-production is very important to be able to plan everything accordingly and shoot it as efficient as possible. For example, to light the shots accordingly to this technique, the shadow technique. And you have to think about that even in the studio when you're doing green screen stuff. Yeah, then came the actual shoot, which were 14 intense days. And because of the tight budget, we couldn't afford any big mistake, so we basically prayed that everything would go smoothly. And looking back at it, I'm not quite sure how we actually survived it. We were only around 12 people on set, including talent, and every one of us wore multiple hats and had to do multiple roles. We also had to reuse big set pieces in different locations. For example, we could only afford to build one big door. So basically, we had to drag around this massive door during the night to have it on the next set, on the next day. Yeah, so this project literally consists of a lot of sweat, some tears, and even a little bit of blood. And it was very exhausting. And like always, we had a lot of problems to solve during the shooting. But everyone was passionate about it and gave like 150%, and it was a great, great time. After we had successfully shot everything with no major problems, came the post-production phase. After 6 months, we finally locked the edit and ended up with 312 visual effect shots. And thanks to the help of a small studio in Georgia, big thanks to Highway Visual Effects, we only had 301 visual effect shots left. And by me, I mean exactly 3 people. Our incredible matte painter, Stephen Corman, our brilliant 3D journalist, Jan Ruppert, who is also here today, and me handling all compositing. 3 artists versus 301 visual effect shots. What could go wrong? The variety of shots was pretty big. We had full CGI environments, we had matte paintings, set extensions, CGI integrations, digital makeup, digital blood, fire, smoke, you name it, we had it. So having an efficient workflow was very important for us, especially when working with external vendors as well. So let's have a look at it. Yeah, so this was our general workflow. First, we converted everything to EXR sequences in ACES 20651 gamut, which basically is called the AP0 stage. Then this was sent off to the artist via Dropbox. And the artists then could convert it to any gamma and color space they needed and wanted to work in, which typically was ACES CG. And for the visual effects previews, we handled everything with Frame.io, so we could easily streamline the feedback and integrate easy feedback loops with different versions and don't end up in chaos. And once the visual effect shot was final and approved, it was then again exported as EXR sequences in ACES 20651 and then sent back via Dropbox to the final assembly. Okay. So for this short film, but also generally speaking, if you want to comp in After Effects, you definitely need the right tools. And in my opinion, this breaks down to 3 major points. Of course, you want the tools to deliver the highest quality possible, but they also need to be efficient and fast, because the best tools have no purpose if you can't meet the deadlines. And also they need to be flexible, for example, to integrate them in different color management workflows. And that's where SuperComp, which is part of Red Giant's visual effects suite, in my opinion, completely changed the game for comping in After Effects. And it helped us a lot to be as efficient as possible working on this short film. For those who don't know, SuperComp basically is a full compositing editor inside of After Effects. And let's break it down. First, it's very intuitive to use, and for simple comps, you can let SuperComp handle all the color management for you internally, but you can also integrate it in, for example, full ACES workflows. It handles a lot of technical things under the hood for you and allows you to focus more on the creative side of things. And of course, the various tools it includes are very high quality, but also it's very efficient. You can go from a slab comp to a final comp very fast, and also you can iterate between different versions quickly, so you can try stuff out and see what works and what doesn't. What's also cool that it gives you a clear structure and also keeps quite complex comps quite neat. So you don't end up with pre-comps and pre-comps and pre-comps, which is typically for After Effects, but it kind of forces you to stick to a clear structure. And actually clients have often asked me how I deliver so fast from a first slab comp to a final polished version, and honestly that's also thanks to SuperComp. So let's have a look at some breakdowns now, and after that we dive into SuperComp a bit. Okay, so let's start with an overview of SuperComp and why it's so powerful. And here's how I typically set up my comps. First, I prepare all elements individually. For example, here I have the foreground smoke element as its own layer, the plate of the keyed actor, and then we have the environment plate, CG, render. And inside the precomps, I do everything I want to apply to that element, like tracking, anamorphic effects, blurs, vignettes, lens effects, chromatic aberrations, etc. And once all elements are ready and work within a slab comp, I then start to work in supercomp to bring them all together. And what I really like about supercomp is its flexible color management. You can go the easy route and let supercomp handle everything under the hood for you, or you can do a full ACES workflow. So first, let's take a look at the easy route. Simply bring in your footage into supercomp. In this case, all elements are in Redlox 3G10 gamma. So within supercomp, we simply set all those elements to this gamma. And if you have plates with a different gamma, you can set this here as well. Supercomp automatically converts everything to linear gamma, which means all effects will be physically accurate right away. And that's all done under the hood for you, and you don't have to worry about it. For the output gamma, we also set it to Redlox 3G10, and this way we can apply our preview LUT on top of the supercomp layer. And if you want more control, you can also go the full ACES route. So let's enable OCIO color management in After Effects, and that way every plate will be converted, in this case, to ACES CG automatically. First, you define the input color space for every plate, which is again Redlox 3G10. In this case, I have already set it up. So every element gets converted from Redlox 3G10 to ACES CG, which means supercomp now receives them in ACES CG as well. And because ACES CG uses linear gamma, we just set the gamma for every plate to linear. We set the output linear to linear as well, and we are ready to go. So that's how the full ACES workflow would look in supercomp. So now let's integrate the different plates using supercomp's built-in tools. Supercomp includes powerful effects that would take much more time to set up manually in After Effects. You have color correction, you have light wraps, you have blur behind, haze, diffusion, beautiful and physically accurate glows, and a lot of other very useful tools. And these are very complex effects, but supercomp makes them simple to apply just in one click and handles a lot for you under the hood. So let's start with some color correction. Just click Match Background to get a quick match, and then fine-tune things like saturation, black point, and exposure. Next, let's take a look at light wraps. It's very easy to add multiple light wraps for better visibility. Let's increase it to 100. And you will notice how it helps blend the edges with the background. That's also great for integration. Just be subtle with it. And now let's add some diffusion to diffuse the element. Again, just a few clicks, and you get a result that would be much more complex to achieve in native After Effects. Basically, it's blurring your layer, then mixing it with the original layer while keeping the original alpha, and this way diffusing the element. Okay, so let's tweak the smoke layer. We reduce the opacity a bit and apply some color correction. And now let's add an effect like haze and blur behind. Haze takes all layers behind your current layer, blurs them, for example, by 100, and mixes it with the current layer. Here the smoke layer. And this is especially useful for things like smoke, particles, and rain, because they typically get backlit and are more visible in brighter areas. And so haze can help us to mimic this behavior. And doing this again natively in After Effects would be much more complex and time-consuming to do. Okay, so let's dial it down to 50 for a more subtle effect. And blur behind is a powerful tool that kind of simulates how volumes interact with light. It takes the elements behind your current layer and blurs them, but only where your current layer is visible based on its alpha channel. That's great for atmospheric effects where the light rays from the background, which go through the volume, would naturally scatter. So at 100% you will see a strong effect. Let's dial it down. And now let's add some optical glow. You can do this easily and it's physically accurate right away. The cool thing about optical glow is that it will also affect the layers in front of it. So basically it's like a lens effect and it's not cut off by any alpha channel. If you don't want this to happen, you can still use the layer glow. And as you can see, we don't have any complex pre-comps. It's all very tidy and efficiently done in SuperComp. So when you start to massage the shot to make it look good, you easily have access to all the settings just within SuperComp. And you can iterate quickly between ideas, elements, effects, and still get high quality results because SuperComp handles so much under the hood for you. And that's very powerful. So now let's have a look at some real shots. Here we replaced the whole airlock with its CG one by Jan. So we had more control of the light and we also added an explosion at the end. As always, I've prepared all the elements individually. We have the background plate, we have our CG render, which we will use to replace the airlock. We have some window dirt to emphasize the glass, and the foreground plate. And these 4 layers are what we will bring together in SuperComp now. First, we bring in just the background plate. That's important because it helps us drive the haze effect. And let's bring the CG layer in, and after some initial color correction to make everything match better, I applied haze. And this gives the shot a subtle foggy feel and helps us blend the elements together more naturally because haze is dynamically using all the layers behind your current layer. Next, we have diffusion and optical glow. Especially once the explosion happens later, this helps a lot. And like I said, what's great about optical glow is that it behaves physically correct, even if your glowing layer is behind another layer. The glow still bleeds over properly, and here you can see how it wraps around the edges. It's not getting clipped by any alpha channel from layers in front of it. And doing that manually in After Effects, again, would be much more complicated. We also added a blurry window dirt layer, and because the dirt is backlit, we again used haze to make it interact with the background. Additionally, areas where the semi-transparent dirt is stronger would create a kind of diffusion effect on the elements behind. So that's where blur behind is useful. It softens the background dynamically, only in areas where the dirt is visible. So these little touches really help to sell the realism here. Now let's go to the foreground plate. We introduced some haze, light wraps, and even a reverse light wrap. The reverse light wrap basically pulls part of the foreground into the background, helping both layers blend together. And all of this becomes super important once the explosion happens. Without these effects, it would look kind of flat, but with those dynamic effects, the glow bleeds nicely into the foreground elements and everything feels much more integrated. Finally, we added some shake, blur, and other parts of optical glow as an adjustment layer to emphasize the impact. And now let's have a look at the final shot again. Okay, so let's go to another shot. Here we had to do a full CGI ground replacement, integrate the talent, and relight the shot. Okay, in this shot we are working with 9 elements we want to bring together. It starts with the ground layer, which is a full CG render. Then I rendered out a separate path for just the red light, which is just a single light source. And this layer is additive, so it's added over the normal ground layer to add that red light. And SuperComp takes care of the blending for us, and since everything is in linear gamma, it's physically accurate right away. For the foreground red light, what I wanted here was for the red light to not just affect the ground, but also interact with the particles, talent, and smoke in the foreground. And to do this, I created a kind of luma mat, which is driven by those individual elements. And in SuperComp, I then tinted it red and added it on top. Now we need to make the red light blink. And that's pretty simple because you can animate any property or use expressions also in SuperComp. So I linked the opacity of the red light layers to a single control object, and that drives the blinking. And this way the red light elements are all driven by this one value. And again, diffusion, haze, light wraps, and blur behind are doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, especially for the particles. Because the particles are only really visible when they are backlit. So how do we make them behave like this? Again, we use haze. Haze allows the particles to interact with the background's brightness and color and making them blend in more naturally. So you see all those tools are very helpful and fast to use. Also, here you can see our Wheel of Shadows principle at work. We intentionally kept the scene very dark in this area. Why? Because the darkness, in the darkness, the contact points aren't really visible. So integrating her was way easier with just some color correction, light wraps, and so on. And I think it works quite well here. So that was the setup for this shot with SuperComp, and we were able to combine all these elements, light interaction, haze, diffusions, additive plate, and create a kind of complex result just with a few intuitive tools. So let's have a look at the final result again. Okay, so a few weeks ago I was introduced to Maxon Studio Capsules by the Maxon team. It's a very powerful feature, and it actually would have helped us a lot back then when dealing with so many shots. So let's have a look at it. Basically, a capsule is essentially your entire project wrapped into a single unit. And it allows you to define key parameters that can be edited directly without needing to dive into the full comp each time. So let's create a new capsule, and you can simply drag and drop the parameters you want to control, and these become your key parameters. For example, let's say we want to be able to swap the footage plate. You can drop that in here, so it's easily changeable for each new shot. We can also drag in values like exposure. To do this in SuperComp, we just set the keyframe to make this value visible down here and then drag the parameter in the capsule. Same goes for other effects. For example, if you want to tweak the glow amount, we can drag it in here as well. So let's give everything proper names, and now the capsule is ready. And now every time you send this capsule to another artist or you want to use it in a different shot, it will rebuild your entire comp, but still gives you direct access to all your key parameters. So you don't even need to dive into the comp to make changes. And of course, if you do want to dive into the comp and tweak other things, you still can, because it's rebuilding your whole comp. But the most important parameters are right at your fingertips. And once you're happy, we hit create. And you can now pass it to someone else or reuse it in another shot. And it's super easy and would have helped us a lot back then. Yeah, so where are we with the short film now? We successfully finished 99% of the visual effect shots without losing our mind. We are currently color grading it and finishing up the Dolby Atmos sound mix. So a finishing line is near, and we plan to have a premiere in the coming month. Yeah, so 3 crucial things you hopefully learned today. Plan everything beforehand, or you will suffer later. I mean, we did also suffer, but we tried our best to suffer less. Passion and teamwork always beats budget constraints, and actually limitations are, in my opinion, good for creativity. And life is short, so go out and make the things you're really passionate about. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation, and I'm now to answer your questions. Thank you so much. And one other note, if you want to try out SuperComp, we have a nice win for everyone who wants to participate. You get a free license, Maxon 1 license for 1 year. So just try your luck. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah.
So could you please tell a little bit more about it's too professional. So thank you very much for the bright and compact presentation. Could you please tell a little bit more about 3D scanning? How did you use it for in pre-production phase? And as much as I understood you use it also in the production of CGI.
Yeah. So we had these locations. They were finished. Then we scanned them with our phone and the app. And 3D scans often are kind of more on the low quality side of things. And this where again the wheel of shadows principle was good for us, because we could hide so much in the shadows, and then we could just put light on certain areas which we want to make visible, and the other areas were dark. Yeah.
But so you used scanning only just to fix the the layout of all places, and just to repeat the volume later in the phase when you were producing the 3D graphics, right?
No, we used it in production. So we used it as set extensions. We had a green screen behind the door. Then we tracked the camera and then put it in 3D space, or for easier shots, 2.5D behind the green screen. And this worked.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I'd like to ask why you decided to go with this workflow in the program that you used instead of Nuke, since it's mostly used for compositing. I just wanted to know the differences, the pros and cons that you weighed on, especially because you were responsible for the production and probably also for the budget.
Yeah. So one main reason was that I work a lot in After Effects. But also, I think SuperComp, Nuke is like this razor-sharp knife you can use to make very specific things and really dive into it. But knowing we had so many visual effect shots and not that much time, I think SuperComp was the better solution because it gives you more quality with a shorter amount of time right off the box. So you concentrate on this vast amount of shots and be quicker than setting up all the comps in Nuke. Yeah, that was the main reason.
May I also ask what the budget was? Because you're saying
we haven't finished yet, so I can't. We are still spending,
Oh, no.
but it's in the low to middle 5-digit area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was a similar question, so. Hi, I wanted to ask if you learned how to use like SuperComp and all that stuff on your own, if there are tutorials for it or anything like that.
Yeah, so I watched some tutorials, but honestly, you don't have to watch many tutorials because when you start to play around, you really you get what you have to do very quickly, and you get the tools to use very quickly. So it's, as I said, it's very intuitive to use, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so no further questions, I guess. Thank you so much, and have a great time at FMX.